Welcome back to Home in Motion. I'm so excited to kick off Season 2 with you. This season, we're diving deeper into what makes home and travel so special. From local adventures to family-friendly destinations and everything in between, we'll keep exploring ways to make life on the move feel a little more grounded and a lot more fun. And what better way to start than with a story rooted right here in the heart of wine country. Today, we're sitting down with the namesake at J. Rickards Winery, a true hidden gem in Alexander Valley. This isn't just about wine, it's about passion, sustainability, and the people who make these incredible vines come to life. So grab a glass of your favorite pour, or maybe a cup of coffee, and join us as we kick off Season 2 of Home in Motion with an unforgettable conversation at J. Rickards Winery. Let's jump in. Well, thank you, Jim, for joining our episode of Home in Motion today. You are the owner and namesake of J. Rickards.
Jim Rickards.
Rickards. Thank you for correcting.
Hard German.
The winery, and this is the location of our interview today.
Yep, we're overlooking the Alexander Valley, a very unique place to grow grapes.
That's what I'm hoping we can talk a little bit about today.
Oh, sure, perfect.
The first place I always like to start is I love hearing people's stories and how they kind of got to where you were. And looking a little bit on the website, you didn't. You were originally making like small batches of wine before kind of jumping in, but I'm curious how you got in the wine industry and how things have evolved over time.
How I wound up here.
Yes.
Right? What you're saying is, well, my story begins a long, long time ago. I was born and raised in San Francisco, city kid all my life, but I always knew I wanted to be a farmer or whatever that meant. I had the good fortune early on of being put in a Jobs Corps program that they ran in San Francisco, and I got to work in Golden Gate Park as a kid in high school, and that was very formative for me, because a lot of people don't know that, you know, Golden Gate Park, San Francisco Golden Gate Park, is a world famous breeding ground for rhododendrons. They supply rhododendrons and azaleas, and that they have a commercial nursery there. And so I actually, again, lucky. Not only did I start working there for the summer, but I also got to work for the guy who was a world famous rhododendron breeder, of all things. It's kind of like, okay, you know, 16-year-old kid, that doesn't mean a great deal. But the fact is it opened the door to me that there was other things beyond, you know, the city.
Yeah, it's very. We've gone to Golden Gate Park several times. I didn't realize that. As a 16-year-old, was that something you were excited about? Like you were interested in doing it, or was it something?
Yeah. Well, yeah. The opportunity came to me, and I was selected, put it that way, to go, and I did that. And then when I got out of the military in '69, I did three things. I grew my hair, grew my mustache, moved out of Dodge, came up here and did the kind of the hippie back to the land thing that was done in those days, and initially got in the cattle business. Why? I thought I could. Meaning, you know, city kids think milk comes from Safeway, right?
Yeah.
And I thought cows were big pets and they walked around and took care of themselves. Yeah. Well, I was dreadfully wrong, but the reality was that it got me into the direction I wanted to go, agriculture. And I got pretty good at it, so I started looking for a property that I could afford. And there weren't many properties then that you could afford. Even then. It was land was very expensive even then. And so I came across this property, and I could afford it for two reasons. Reason number one, it was considered a crappy place to grow grapes, and still is, based on the paradigm of the day. In 1976, you had two flavors, red and white, came in jugs this big.
Yep.
It was about bulk winemaking and volume grape growing. If you weren't getting, 6-8 tons to the acre like the Flatlanders do, you weren't economically viable. Our old vineyard that was existent here then, and still is for that matter, planted in 1908, was only getting about a half a ton to the acre.
Wow, so very
Yeah,
minimal
it was
compared
minimal. The other reason I could afford the property was there were no buildings here.
to... Okay.
My kids,
even the existing vineyard stuff,
just an old vineyard, and that was it.
Okay.
The place had a reputation of no water or perk, and it was very difficult property. But we lived outside in a tent for a year while I built the house myself and worked nights at Santa Rosa Memorial Hospital. I worked the ICU there.
Very busy. At that point in time, did you guys have kids, or is it just you
My
and your
kids
wife?
were 2, 4, and 6.
Oh my goodness. And I'm an adventure for them, I'm sure, at that age.
Have you ever been camping more than 2 weeks?
No. We've done 2 days with our kids.
And that's it, right? It's like, give me the shower, right? Or, the fact is, it was a very impressive accomplishment. And surprisingly enough, they still talk to me.
You haven't scarred them too much.
No, they, all the kids worked hard in living here, and as kids do on the farm. But they really had an exceptional experience that really framed their ethic in life.
Yeah, which is very important.
Yeah, and you might also ask me the next question out of your mouth: are any of them following in my footsteps?
Involved.
And the answer is no. Why? Well, the why of that is that I promised myself that I would really remember that this was my dream, not my kid's dream.
Yeah, and not...
And, in our industry, you have multi-generational families that often have difficulties. You feel forced into, joining the family business and not doing your passion. And, working, being in the military and working in the ICU, I know that life can be short and life can be brutal. And, you have to do your own thing to be a successful person in life.
Yeah, and like you said, you don't want them, if that's not what they want to do, then
Yeah.
you don't want to.
Yeah, and the nice thing about my kids live locally. They come and help me when I want it. And,
It's something they can enjoy.
and that's correct.
How did it go from starting with the original winery to, this is a lot of space you have now, so how did that
Well, how did I transition? Well, guess what? People ask me, well, what happened to the cows? The cows went bye-bye. Why? 76, 77 was one of the first of the true droughts we've had in California. And so it was like no grass to feed the cows.
Then, yeah,
Bye-bye cows.
food source.
And so then I had this old vineyard here, and appalling as it may seem, I had no money. And I couldn't do what everybody else did in those days, and that is pull out the old vineyard and plant a new one. Couldn't afford it. And my thing was that, okay, well, this is the hand that was dealt me. I'm going to learn how to farm this old vineyard. And the classic example of how luck trumps skill every time is just that old vineyard. Because I couldn't change the dynamic of the vineyard, I learned to farm this old thing. But also, I saved, in essence, a vineyard that was now 120 years old.
Yep.
That's part of it. Part of it's even more than that. It was planted by a woman, Rosa Brignoli, in 1908. one of the few women of her time who farmed wine grapes. She had about 60 acres of grapes and owned a winery. Pretty exceptional place.
Yep.
The next thing that's exceptional about that vineyard is that it was planted in 1908. When I say 1908, you're thinking, oh, well, that's a long time ago. But what I'm thinking, that vineyard was planted before the Industrial Revolution.
Yep, before the machinery to be able
The
to...
tractors in those days were called horses, weren't they?
Yeah.
How do you mix and blend wine when pumps weren't invented yet? Oh, yet they did it. And they didn't do it a basket at a time, this kind of stuff, or anything out of I Love Lucy, you know? Because you're dealing with tons of grapes here.
Yep.
How they did it is really remarkable. How they planted grapes 2 centuries ago is really pretty exceptional. Rosa decided on the kind of wine she wanted to make, the wine style, and the kind of grapes that she would have in that wine blend. Mm-hmm. And then she planted them all together, all mixed up. So as you pick the vineyard, you get the blend.
Yep.
Nowadays you hear people say, oh, it's just a field blend.
Field blend.
But
People dismiss
they
it.
really don't understand how that came about or how important it was. I mean, consider that. I mean, think about that. Well, out there's 80% Zin, 10% Petit Syrah, 5% Carignan, 2% Mataro, 1% each Alicante Bouschet, Muscat Canelli, and Chasselas. Think about that. I mean, okay, why? Why? Well, part of the field blend issue is you couldn't blend in those days. The pumps weren't invented, were they?
Right.
So you couldn't do like I do nowadays. And so that is a treasure from 2 centuries ago.
Yep.
Dumb
To
luck,
appreciate.
okay? Dumb luck. But we all need to be lucky sometimes.
Yeah.
Now, following me along, so I became a fairly successful grape grower and planted more and more vineyard. All this vineyard around here. We started with 4 from the old vineyard, and we're up now to about 45 acres, basically, of 40 I planted and 1 left over from Rosa's vineyard over the time here. And I'm a fairly respected commercial vineyard operator. Yeah. I sell grapes. Well, in 1991, my wife, Eliza, who is my muse in life, she said to me, she says, well, if you grow the best grapes in the world, how do you know unless you make wine? Yeah. And that makes perfectly good sense in this way. In those days, winery relations were almost always adversarial. You know, I want more for my grapes, so you're not going to tell me the value of the grapes to you as a winery, right?
Yep.
And so you didn't know that. And I said, okay. Then she threw the gauntlet in my face with the fact that she said, well, my father made wine and he was a doctor. Okay, tell the ICU nurse that, right?
Yeah.
And so I started making wine, but I said to myself, okay, I'm going to make wine as a QA project, quality assurance, right? I'm going to get the best small style winemaking equipment I can buy and approach this as a QA thing. As we're picking grapes, majority of the grapes go you, but I get some every now and again.
To make their own.
Yeah, so I made my own. And that's how I got into the wine business. And I was very good at that, mostly because I have pretty good grapes.
I'm kind of curious. We are obviously consumers of wine, and how did you go about, like, from the farming and the winemaking, learn that? Like, you know, people have...
Oh, okay.
Some people go to school for that, but...
How
yes,
did I do it?
How did you do it?
Okay, well, 1978 is a pivotal moment for me. Okay, remember, cows bye-bye. I'm dealing with this old vineyard. How do I learn to farm it? How do I do it? And so forth. Well, coincidentally, what I decided to do was go back to college and finish my degree in nursing on the VA bill. And in those days, because I was a former Navy corpsman, they have different training than an Army medic. And so you can and still can, challenge certain courses, nursing courses, which I did do. And so I filled those up with ag classes. So I was still a full-time student. So I used to get some interesting letters from the VA. When the semester, yeah, exactly that. Finishing up the semester, I would get a letter from the VA and saying, well, if you're a nursing major, how come you're taking these ag classes? And I would write a nice letter back that said, well, actually, I'm a dual major, agriculture and nursing, right? 6 months later, if you're an ag major, how come you're taking these nurse classes? That went on for 3 years. But the fact is that they supported me all through it. Not a problem. They never cut the money off.
Yeah.
So that's how I learned viticulture. And fortunately enough, the Santa Rosa Junior College is an extraordinary place. You understand that up to that point, most of winemaking, fine grape growing, was the information derived from the Central Valley, UC Davis. It did not apply to what we do here.
It's different.
It was different environment, but more than that, the Central Valley's flat. You're not dealing with hillsides here. You're not dealing with, all the different aspects of grape growing, and Sonoma, Santa Rosa Junior College under Rich Thomas, took the program there, which was sort of just what you would get from a junior college
type education.
Yeah, to one that was extraordinary. The Santa Rosa Junior College was rated the second viticultural school in the U.S. after Cornell.
Wow. Like you said, you wouldn't think that from a junior college.
Yeah, you wouldn't think that. But the fact is that Rich Thomas and the other folks there that really took the reins of this really wonderful area we came in, and they brought world leaders in to talk to us and all kinds of stuff. It was a really extraordinary time.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned kind of that expansion. How did you pick learning this land, what varietals to grow? Because you have a lot.
People ask me that. People ask me a lot that. Well, how do you know what to grow? And the answer is you don't until you do. True.
Yeah.
There's 3 ways of looking at that. Okay. Oh, let me finish the winemaking deal. Okay. So, in 2005, Eliza and I decided that we'd open up a commercial winery. Okay, and that's what we wound up doing. I liken it to, in 91, I was kind of dipping my toe in the mud, and it was feeling kind of good. Pretty soon I got my foot in it, and now I'm rolling in it. This is what's called rolling in it.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's how we got into commercial winery. Now, the varieties I grow are a little different. They came different. There's 3 ways of looking at it from my point of view. Way number 1, look around you and see what your neighbors plant and plant that.
Yep.
1978, that's exactly what I did. I planted Zinfandel, Petit Syrah. That's what my neighbors had.
Yep.
Okay, now there's a second way, more risky, higher potential for failure, and that is plant something that nobody has ever grown up here before. But you're making a $100,000 an acre gamble.
Yeah.
Okay. My neighbor, Chip Leith, in the late 60s, early 70s, planted a variety up here, 10 acres. Yeah, $1 million.
Yeah.
10 acres, and of a variety that had not been grown up here before. He planted Cabernet Sauvignon. Knocked it out of the ballpark.
Yeah.
Okay? We are now world famous for Sauvignon Blanc. Cabernet Sauvignon. And, well, golly, that's one way. The third way, my way, okay, is this, but longer way.
Yeah.
There's less risk involved, and that is start a experimental vineyard, meaning plant a whole bunch of different kind of ones and see what grows up and does well. And remember I said it's about farming. It's about the grapes, right?
Yep.
So during the first 5 or 6 years the vines are growing up, you're learning how to farm them.
The farming
right?
roots.
Yeah, the growing how to graze, make it. And so, therefore, in '83, I planted my very first experimental vineyard. Okay, and with a lot of varieties in it that several actually, I don't grow now. They failed.
Yep.
They didn't make it. A couple did, surprisingly enough. And here's how that went. It's a slow process, but you don't lose a whole lot of money.
Okay.
Okay, I planted my very first Malbec. Did you have some of our Malbec?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, it's pretty nice, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I planted Malbec in 1983 in my experimental vineyard.
Okay.
Okay, so first 6 years, your 7 years, you're raising them up so you get enough fruit to make some wine from.
And have enough.
Yeah, physically have enough. And so it was like, okay. So 83 to 90,
Yep.
right? I had my first grape harvest, right? Essentially. Wow, 2 years of winemaking, and it's 93 already, right? And I'm tasting this wine going, wow, I got to plant more of this stuff. Fast forward, I didn't have my first commercial crop of Malbec until 2003, excuse me.
So 20 years from the original planting to...
Yeah. But the fact is, I didn't lose any money, did I?
No. With planting the different varietals and the experimental, then like over time when you figure out what's not working, then did you plant more Malbec to replace what didn't work? Or
No, plant something else. I mean,
Okay.
experimental vineyard, right? And I mean, when something failed, like a variety called Mataro. It's also known as Mourvedre
Oh, yep.
in France. And I planted that. It didn't do well here. Why? It's very late harvest. And often I was harvesting in the rain in November.
Oh, yeah.
And
That's,
not
doesn't
good.
work. Yeah.
Yeah, that
Not
doesn't
fun,
work.
probably.
No,
either.
sir. So, I know people that grow it here. They have special sites, I think. But the fact is that it worked. Okay, for them.
Yep.
Not for me. So that got pulled out and something else came in.
Yep.
And that's kind of how that worked through time.
What's the time frame for like you
Deciding?
saying this? Yeah, exactly. Not going to work.
It's usually around 5 or 6 years, because I'll know how the vine likes it here. And by then.
Yep.
And by then being, well, how does it survive the warm weather? How is the fruit set good? Is it making grapes? Because sometimes things don't make fruit.
Yep.
Because there's some kind of dyssynergy between the soil temperature, the outside temperature, the water availability, and a whole bunch of other things. And I tried growing Tempranillo. Did not work. Wouldn't set a crop. And so there was something, like I said, wrong with that.
And
Okay?
it just doesn't match
Yeah.
with the land.
I planted some Sangiovese. Loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Guess what? I'm planting more of that.
Yeah.
The grafting you see on the side of the driveway.
Yep. When we first drive in.
Yeah, when you first drive in, those are all vines being grafted to Sangiovese. And it's because that third row back that way is Sangiovese and is doing well.
That's really cool. To like the experimental side of it, that to me is really interesting.
Yeah,
Trying to troubleshooting and trying to figure it out.
And all around, this is the experimental vineyard behind us this way.
Okay.
And there's a lot of different varieties. There's some Sauv Blanc over there. Okay. And then there's another variety called Aleatico. There's some Muscat here. Back behind, next row up there, is a variety called Montepulciano.
Never heard that one.
No, it's Italian varietal. But you notice the leaves are different? See the leaf shapes are different than the ones in the front here?
Yep.
There's a little more spiky here, there's a little more this and that.
Straight up.
Yeah. And there's some, behind that is some Cinsault, which is a variety from southern France, the Rhone region.
Yep.
And we kind of like that too. So I planted some more of that.
That's
And that's, I planted some Nebbiolo, which is a variety from, and did not like it here. We were just too hot. It's a cold variety.
That makes sense. With
No,
the
from
climate.
northern Italy, where it's cold. And so did not like it. And it would just, the leaves weren't tough. And it would, dry
Dry
up.
in the summer.
Yeah, and burn and scorch and stuff. And it just couldn't do it. So that got replaced.
Has been, because you've tried a lot of different varieties, what's your favorite varietal to work with?
Right now that I've out of the experimental, or just overall?
Or just overall.
Overall, I really love Cabernet. It is all varieties have their own needs, have their own special stuff going on with them. Petite Syrah is a variety has very tight, dense bunches. Has a tendency to get bunch rot. Not
From
something
being so
we like
close.
so much.
Yeah.
And so what we do is we pick the leaves around it, so we get good airflow through, right? Exposed to the morning sun, because even the morning dew can cause bunch rot. Yeah.
Got it.
And yet, if you take off too many leaves, like on the western side, it gets sunburn.
Yep.
Something we don't like either, right? So it's a really Goldilocks kind of grape, but we work through it. That's what their needs are. Zinfandel, the bunches are very ripen and very unevenly. On the same bunch you can find raisins and green grapes.
I would imagine that would make winemaking kind of hard.
It does, yes, it does. But the fact is that we grow them in more like head prune. We call them head prune. So the canes are coming out inside of a 360 look, which means that the bunches get more exposure to the sun that way,
Being on
round a
top.
lot. See?
Yep.
And so that helps with that ripening process. So Cabernet is a weed. I mean, it wants to get there. It wants to be this great big. And the thing is that you got to tame. How do you tame that weed? Well, you tame it by putting it on soil that's not very good, not very rich.
To temper it and kind of hold it back a little
That's
bit.
correct. Yeah, that's exactly correct. And the idea of making grapes, stress is an overdone phrase, certainly. But the fact is that, remember the crappy place to grow grapes?
Yeah.
Okay, crappy
You're
place.
benefiting.
Yeah. Yes, correct. Now we can grow world-class Cabernet here, and do a good job.
Yeah. You obviously live and breathe the winery. When you're not working on the winery, what's your favorite wine to enjoy?
Oh my goodness gracious! We live in a country where there's so much good stuff out here.
Yeah.
And I know I tend to like, let me put it this way. People ask me all the time, well, what's your favorite wine? Well, it's the wine in my glass. Okay?
Gonna be
And
drinking
it sounds like a joke, but it's true in a way.
Yeah.
I don't put bad wine in my glass or wine I don't like. It's going to be something good, something, and that fits me. The healthy lifestyle about wine consumption is the fact that you have a couple of glasses a day, and it's been proven over and over again that moderate wine drinkers live longer than non-drinkers. All cause, and so there's some benefit to that in some way. But the fact is that I tend to be a seasonal drinker.
Okay.
Meaning, when it starts getting cold, October. My mother was born in Vermont, right? So I got that New England gene in me. So when it first gets frosty, it says pot roast, pot roast, pot roast, pot roast, pot roast, goes off. So I want big red wines to get me through the wintertime. And in the spring and the summer, I start transitioning to other whites, to lighter reds. Zinfandel, man, there's no better wine for grilling. And than Zinfandel. And so that tends to be my MO as far as wine, And the Alexander Valley is like I said earlier, it's a very unique place to grow grapes. And the why of that is that it's the only valley that is open-ended. It's got a river that runs through it, doesn't it? All the way, end to end, which means the weather, if you think of the Russian River as a pipeline to the ocean, when the weather comes up, it goes all the way through the valley. Whereas in Dry Creek, where it's a closed-end valley, the weather only comes up part of the way. Same is true with Napa. Weather only comes up from the bay up to about St. Helena. Above that, it becomes very hot because the weather can't push
that far.
Here, it's trying to get to Ukiah. And so our day-night temperature changes can be pretty radical. I mean, yesterday we were in, I think, I looked at my thing and said, we're 96 degrees. Well, last night it cooled off to about 55 degrees.
Right. This time of year, it makes it hard just like dressing like as normal people, to figure out what to wear.
Correct. That's right. We call, it's layers, You got to have layers. But that's really unique. That's really unique in the world. I mean, Sonoma County as a grape growing region is on par with very few places in the world that are exceptional. Consider that in Bordeaux is so big, such a big area, that you can fit Sonoma, Marin, Lake County, and Napa in it and have room for Solano. Okay, you're talking about Northern California here, all right? And, there's so many what we call microclimates, places that are really, you're talking about the variety of grapes I grow. And I'm blessed with the fact that I farm the east-facing slope of Chianti Mountain behind us. Well, that means that I've got a lot of action going on here, a lot of places that are truly different in soil composition, weather composition, that I can do that with. And figuring out that has been the most fun.
Yeah.
The most fun. I made mistakes. Yeah, I have. And planted the wrong things, thinking, well, that would work, without really actually making a test.
And nature teaches you.
That's great. Yeah. You learn very quickly. Nope, not doing that.
When we were here for the tasting this past weekend, one of our favorites was the Brown Barn Red Blend. And Ozzy was telling us all the different varietals that go into that. And that was one of our favorites because it was the most balanced of some of the wines we tried. And I would love to hear, we haven't really learned a lot about like blending, so I would love to hear you talk about that process. I just imagine like tinkering and mad scientist a little bit, but
well,
I'm sure
yeah. As a pharmacist background, you do a lot of that mad scientist tinkering, right?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I look at it in two ways. There's two kinds of blending. Okay. Maybe we'll take a break here.
Yeah.
Until the tractor goes by.
Yeah.
That's Juan, my foreman. He's worked for me for 35 years.
That's great to have that consistency, like in trust and relationships.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, our employees are all well paid. Mm-hmm. They work year round. There's no off time, and it's a small crew, small, tight, 4 people that do that whole 50 acres. Now it takes us longer to do certain tasks, but that's the way it is. And the fact is, everybody knows their job. They know what to do. They know, remember, high-end fruit, high-end grape grower. And to do that, you have to have your game on.
Yep.
And, as a result, my guys are, like I said, employed full-time. They get, holidays, vacations, and 401k. So it's what you would expect from a skilled professional.
Yep.
And that's how we look at it. So the tractor's passed.
Yeah, blending.
Blending. Okay, there's 2 ways of doing it. Okay, there's what I call goal-directed. In other words, you take a particular kind of wine, and what you want to do is just add a little nuance to it or change it a little bit, but not kill it, meaning change it to something it's not. Did you guys have any Bettino's blend?
I don't remember.
No, might not have been. I don't think we've moved it off the tasting menu. But it's we call a Super Tuscan.
Okay.
Super Tuscan. Super Tuscan is a wine blend style that was done in Tuscany, in northern Italy. In the normal Chianti-based wine is Sangiovese, where they have to actually add, by law, 10 to 15% white wine to it. That's why Chiantis often are kind of light and almost like a heavy rosé, if you would.
Yep.
And there's a subset of people in Italy, and one particular guy named Bettino Ruscatelli. I just killed his name. Sorry, Bettino.
That's okay.
Who decided years and years ago what he wanted to do was make a big, darker wine. And in spite of being kicked out of the cooperative for that, and then he really pissed everybody off by using French varietals in the blending. And so he developed the Super Tuscan, which is mostly Sangiovese with either a little bit of Merlot or Cabernet, or both in our case. And what you're trying to do, Sangiovese has just a beautiful acidity to it and goes really well with foods, carbohydrates and that.
Stuff.
However, it doesn't have much in the way of mid-palate and not a very long finish. Mm-hmm. So what you're trying to do is buff it up in the middle and extend the palate a little bit, but not kill the wine.
Yep.
Okay? Now, the other wine blending style is what I call making soup. Okay, now it may seem that that's a little less serious than the goal-directed, but it's not. It's actually more serious, because think about that. Think, when you're making soup, don't you start with a base liquid?
Yes.
And then what you do is you add a little bit of this, and then you wait until it integrates. And then you taste it again, you go, needs a little more seasoning. I'm going to need to put some basil in it, or I need to do that. Then you let it set for a while. Mm-hmm. You might be making, the soup maybe 4-6 hours over total time, which is pretty long to cook anything, isn't it? You've invested a lot of time and effort. But more than that, every time you add a component, you've tasted it and say, oh, yeah, okay, I like that. Now I think it needs a little more, a little less. Okay, that's pretty serious winemaking, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay, the Brown Barn that you tasted had a laundry list of stuff, but not that much in reality. We started with the base liquid, okay, and we added a little bit of Syrah to it. Let it set for a little bit. Integrate.
Yep.
We call it, and then we taste it up. Oh, I like that juiciness that is brought in the plate. They're brought to the plate. Let me add more. See what it's like, because when you're blending, when you're doing, don't you want to know is what's too little and what's too much?
Too much. Yep.
Okay.
The Goldilocks part.
Yeah, the Goldilocks part. Yeah, exactly. And so you do that, but you can do that. Blaine and I, Blaine Brazil is our technical winemaker. I'm the grape growing portion of that winemaking team. Together, we, put the blends together. We decide on harvesting times, all these kinds of things, and it's all based on flavors.
Okay.
Okay, and people say, oh, gee whiz, you have so much experience tasting this or whatever. My answer is, no, you got the same taste buds I have. You control what goes into your face, don't you?
Yep.
And the fact is that what you don't have is the breadth of experience of doing it.
And the too little, too much.
Yeah, and knowing how, when you're making soup, right, you have the base of the fact that you made soup before. Have you ever made soup the same? No, but you know the components that might be there.
And then adjust.
And then you adjust and go along. And so this is exactly what happened with the Brown Barn. Then we started adding other components that I know I like with Zinfandel, meaning Petit Syrah. Petit Syrah is big, dark, tannic wine, but it adds a lot of body to it. So we wanted to add a little body to it, and we call Petit Syrah the doctor. It fixes anything. You need color, you need structure, call the doctor, right?
Yep.
Well, Carignan is a different variety of grapes that's not made very often as a standalone, although we do. We make a standalone Carignan. But it is, on the other hand, it has a great deal of fruit punch and nice acidity. It's another fruit-driven red, much like Sangiovese, and much like Pinot Noir, Carignan, Grenache, are all varieties of that ilk, if you would. And adding that, what you're adding is this, great, nice acidity to it. You're adding this like little juicy fruit punch, yeah. And again, you taste it. You say, oh, I like that. You let it seep for a while. It might take us, 12, 14 months to put a blend together.
That's what I was going to ask, the time frame of that sitting and meshing together.
Yeah, it's a little bit longer than soup making.
Just a little bit. The other thing I wanted to talk about, because we didn't talk about it at our tasting, was I saw on the website your sustainability practices. And I know, especially for wine consumers, they're becoming more knowledgeable and aware of sustainable farming practices. So I would love to hear about what you guys do here.
I'd be happy to. Sustainability is a program that now has developed into major tenets of it. In other words, each little section of this basically contract has different focuses. You focus on reducing carbon emissions. You focus on reducing inputs. You focus on maintaining the land where it is. In other words, not sending gobs of dirt in to pollute the Russian River because of your farming practices. You have to remember our old vineyard, remember? That vineyard was planted in 1908, was farmed organically for all of its life. Yet it lost this much topsoil to erosion.
Yep.
Okay? So not all practices work.
Yep.
Sustainability is where you look at the need and say, yeah, I can take an idea from organic, I can take an idea from biodynamic, and, in 2 weeks it'll be my idea. And so these tenets are very important to all of us that practice social justice. Remember, you told you how my employees are treated and paid. Okay, so all these kind of things are what we try to do. Now, how I started was accident. Okay, but I started long before anybody knew what we were doing around that.
Yeah.
And I started it actually in 1977. How that happened was this. Remember, the old vineyard was so disastrously farmed that there were places where the weeds wouldn't even grow. And the roots of the vines were exposed. They were tipping over because they'd just been
ignored.
It's been a horrible experience for them. And so I said, I can't continue to do this. No more than that, I can't continue to pollute the Russian River. It's not going to happen. I need to do things that are different than whatever did. Remember, I wasn't born to this business.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have anybody telling me what I shouldn't do or
Yep.
couldn't do. I did a lot of goofy things. And a lot of things that really was a consternation to my neighbors. But the fact is that some of them worked, some of them didn't. But the good ones did. Here's what happened. I decided that what I wanted to do was plant grass out there, which hadn't been done up to that point,
Yep.
ever. And so I said, okay, I'm going to plant some grass that, how do I know what to plant? Well, I had cattle, remember? I know what range mix is, right? And I said, okay, well, I'm going to use that as the base. But I'm going to add some other stuff to it, okay? I'm going to add to that range mix, I'm going to add some legumes. Crimson, rose, star clovers. Another little guy called subclover, which is actually a relative to peanut. And I'm adding, nitrogen fixtures to the soil. Then I decided, well, if I'm going to do this right, I need to plant some native grasses. Well, native grass, one of the native grass I tried was a California ryegrass, which is actually a threatened species due to invasive other grasses.
Okay.
And so we plant that, Zorro, fescue, and a few others. And I said, okay, now what? Oh, I know what I'm going to do. I want to plant some wild radish and wild mustard.
Okay.
Why? Well, when you're looking at grass has a lot of roots like this, right? Radish and mustard have conical, like carrots.
Yep.
And so they punch holes in the ground.
That would help the grass?
Help the water go in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's the way it works.
Yeah.
And so so I took that idea for the seed mixer down to the seed guy, LaBallister's Seed. If you ever would need seed or anything, they're in Santa Rosa now. And LaBallister's, and he said, well, yeah, I can see what you're trying to do. I can put the mix together. He says, but I've got some wildflower seeds left over from a previous order, and I could give you a deal on it. Well, I like deals.
Yeah.
And so, lo and behold, we planted that in the winter of 77, 78. Remember, it was a moment for me, right? I'm changing my ethics, learning to farm this whole vineyard, going to school, this kind of stuff. And so I said, okay, I'm going to do this. So next year, I'm up to my hips in all this grass and all this stuff. And you can't plow it. You can't disc it in. What it does is just tips over and makes these big balls of things. It's like, oh my God, what do I do now? Yeah. And I said, oh, okay, all right. what I'm going to do, I'm going to mow it. I rent a mower, okay? And that's what I did. I mowed it. Well, guess what? That changed a huge dynamic. Number one, instead of 6 weeks of my plowing the vineyard, I'm now taking 2 weeks to mow it.
To mow it.
What happened there? Didn't I use a lot less diesel? My carbon emissions are down. Okay.
Because of the shorter time frame.
Yes.
Yep.
And I'm spending less time, a little more profitable, aren't I? Mm-hmm. Okay, wow. Guess what that's called?
What?
Sustainable farming.
Yeah.
Okay? And I have to say, I wasn't the only one. There was another guy that did it. His name was Jim Hill. Mm-hmm. And we both did the same, almost the exact same thing the very same year. And it was 1978. And, I've always said, he can be first. That's all right. I don't mind it. And so nowadays we have stands of beautiful wildflowers out there, and you can see them. You see that little yellow guy behind us there on the ground?
Yep, on the ground, yes.
That's a calendula. Calendula was, it was in that original seed packet, and it grows around everywhere here. I mean, that's such a hardy plant. It doesn't need water. It doesn't need anything practically. Fact is, you probably didn't notice, but there calendula growing out in my driveway.
Oh, no, we didn't.
You drive them over. Well, the plants there, the flowers aren't, but the plants are there.
Yeah.
That's how tough they are. Anyway, so then, okay, so I've gone down this pathway that nobody else has traveled before. Mm-hmm. Isn't it sometimes a little odd that you're going down a pathway that nobody's traveled, and all of a sudden you got to make a left turn?
Yep.
Because you got to do it. And here's the left turn. Over the next couple of years, I noticed that the bad bugs were tending to go away. They're starting to disappear.
Okay.
And I really didn't care, to tell you the truth. Yeah. But I noticed it, and the fact that I thought maybe that was a good thing. And I debated over time whether I needed to spray an insecticide out. Mm-hmm. Finally, in 1982, I decided against it. You have to get out early. You have to do all this kind of stuff. It's bad on the soil at the moment. Actually, what happened was my tractor broke and I couldn't do it. But the fact is that I could have rented a tractor, had somebody else do it, a million other things. I just said, nah, I'm just not going to do it. And I haven't sprayed an insecticide since. Why? Well, again, we know why.
Yeah, all the chemicals and it's...
No, not that. It's something else that's more important that happened here. And that is, we talked about often companion planting, right? Mm-hmm. And most people understand that as one plant helping another plant. Mm-hmm. It's not that simple. It's not that simple at all. My first experiment with companion planting, one I did not realize until many years later, was we raised our own food here. Mm-hmm. Early on, and I grew tomatoes, and you know tomato bugs.
Yeah.
The big old caterpillars. They're all I called they're moth. It's a moth. It's a huge moth called the tobacco worm. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's that family, and you know you get them on there, right? Well, a good friend of mine, Charlotte Schatz, over in Sebastopol, had a nursery kind of in her backyard and stuff. And every year she'd give me this tray of zinnias. And I thought it was really cool planting zinnias out in the garden. Mm. And I never got any tomato worms. Yep. Ever. Yeah. And I never figured that one out, never thought about it. Until one time I said, okay, I'm going to be cool. I'm going to plant my zinnias around the border of the garden, you know, and make it a more formal, organized thing, right? Mm-hmm. Guess what? I got no tomato worms on the zinnia side, and I got tomato worms on the non-zinnia side. It's the moth.
Yeah.
The moth is a pollinator. And what it does, it goes and eats the pollen from the tomato blooms and deposits an egg. Okay?
That makes sense.
The zinnias confused it.
Yeah.
It couldn't figure out what. Or it went to zinnias first or something or other.
Yep.
But the fact is that whatever it was, that was my first time. Well, now, out in the vineyard, the bad bugs continue to go away. And it's like, okay, what's happened here? We know the science of that. It's companion planting, but not in the way you think. How it works is this. Well, with all the plants I put out in the vineyard, we have now blooming plants from about mid-February through about June.
Okay.
Right about now.
Now.
You don't see much
Not
other
as
than
much,
little few weeds here and there, but out there, there's some a little bit of wild radish out there yet, but that's about it. Well, the pollen-eating insects have now a wonderful, wonderful source of food, don't they?
Yep. That's
And
not
so
the
therefore, they have multiple generations, lots of babies. Okay. If I'm feeding them, aren't I feeding the predators also? Spiders, ladyboots, thrips, spotted thrips, minute pirate bugs, predatory mites. These guys have now lots to eat also, don't they?
Yes.
Multiple generations, multiple babies. So in June, when the pollinators get out of Dodge, the predators move out of the understory and eat up into the upper story and eat my bad guys.
Okay. So
That's how it works. Now, remember sustainable farming?
Mm-hmm.
Aren't you trying to reduce your inputs?
Yes.
Bingo! Another one up on the scoreboard, huh?
Yep.
Okay. Now, other things around sustainability. Well, reducing inputs. How do you do that? How do you really decide what fertilizers are needed out there? What do you do in the hospital?
We
Don't you
come
do
up with,
blood tests?
Yes, in labs.
At lab. Ooh, guess what I do? I do leaf analysis.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yes, it is. Yes, we do leaf analysis, and it's right around a specific time every year, same time, because you have to look at it that, be able to correlate back and forth. So it's right around bloom happens. We go out and we do leaf samples.
Okay.
Out in all the vineyard. And we know now what the nutritional needs are of our vines.
Okay.
So we don't overshoot.
Yep, because you have numbers to...
We have numbers to do it. Okay? That's sustainable farming, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Remember, we don't want runoff. We don't want to pollute anything. We don't want measurable chemicals rolling off into the Russian River. And it's pretty amazing, the fact that they've never, ever been able to find any chemicals from vineyard growing in the Russian River.
Yep.
It's pretty amazing.
In this area, with all the vineyards
and
everything.
Yeah. And the fact is that they find plenty of urban pesticides and things, but not grape growing ones. That's a pretty good record. That's we're doing some cool things.
Yeah.
And I did it accidentally. It's part of it. I had to. It's not really accident. Luck. Luck is a complex item, isn't it?
Yep.
I mean, when you look at, how did you wind up doing what you're doing in life? It's almost like with luck, huh? No, it's more complex than that. Life presents you with challenges. You deal with the challenges as best you can. As parents, that's exactly what you do. Mm-hmm. Okay? And you deal with that, and then you you kind of see what works and what doesn't, and then you move on. And farming is like that. I have several rules of farming. Jim's rules of farming. Okay, and rule number 1: farming has to be profitable in order for optimism to be sustainable.
Yes, that makes sense.
That's rule number 1. Rule number 2 is you have to be optimistic in order to bet the farm every year.
Yes. 'Cause
Okay.
there's things outside of your control.
A lot of people don't understand that the reality is that farmers bet the farm every year. I mean, you don't bet your house.
No.
Okay, and farmers do. Yeah. And you have to be optimistic of the future to do that. Number 3 is you have to give up worrying about the things you have no control over and concentrating on the things that you do well in order to mitigate the things you have no control over. Okay? Otherwise, if you're constantly worrying about the weather or this or that, you're going to find a tall bridge to jump off of because it'll drive you nuts. And number 4, one of the more important ones, tractors only break when you use them. The rest of the time, they're in perfect condition.
That's actually a good segue because when we were here for the tasting, we learned about the Lamborghini a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
How did you come about getting that? We were kind of curious.
Well, I was up here, bought this property, right? 76. A guy, a neighbor, did the farming on it for me for the first couple of years because I had nothing. And I was looking around for a used tractor that I could buy, one I could, remember, a Ford thing? And that tractor was a tractor I could afford. Not only that, it had to fit into the old vineyard. Remember 1908? The tractors were horses?
Right, well, so they're a lot narrow.
Very narrow, very narrow. Horses, in the old days, all the vine rows were between 6 and 7 feet. Why? Horses couldn't pull a disc bigger than 4 feet. And now you could two-team it, but that would make a very wide, that wouldn't fit in the row. So 1 horse, and that's how they did it. I needed a tractor that could fit in between that old horse fit.
That's really cool. That was one of our highlights of checking out.
Yeah, I have 3 of them. And my wife says any more than 2 is a collection. So you're looking at a Lamborghini collector. I've been compared to that guy in England a lot,
Yeah.
Uh-oh, I better silence this. Mr. Spam likes me a lot.
I think they like us all.
Yeah. And so anyway, yeah. And they've been very usable, very serviceable tractors, and they're really, really outstanding in a lot of ways.
The quality.
The quality. The usefulness about them, how it works, and things you look for in a tractor, In tractors, you want horsepower. You want grip on the ground. It's not so much horsepower as grip on the ground.
Yep.
You can always go lower, slower, right? And still get the job done. Well, good. That has high and low range. So you can really go low, low, low. Or you can go high, high, high. Oh, gee whiz. In Italy, all tractors have to be licensed for the road, including that thing. And by the way, for you guys, it's a crawler tractor, like a bulldozer.
Yep.
And they made that so it would go on the road, meaning they would jack the back up, bolt tires to it, to the final drive, and then put a joist wheel in the front, and off you would zoom. Man, high fourth and that high range is like dynamite. It's scary. Yeah. I have only gone high range for short periods of time
Yeah.
because it's so damn scary. But anyways, other thing, you want that. You're also looking serviceability, meaning how does it work for you? It's got power takeoff. That's a good thing. But more than that, it's got power takeoff going this way, counterclockwise, and counterclockwise.
Both directions.
Both directions. It has hydraulics, meaning you can plug in to a hydraulic thing and make other things contract and move around. It has 3-point hitch that can lift up pieces of equipment as you're moving along. In the 70s, when I bought that tractor, there were no other tractors like that in the U.S. that had all that ability.
Functionality.
It wasn't until much later that Caterpillar redeveloped the D2 to do that.
Those same things.
Yeah, do the same things. So that's how I got it. And I got it because the fact is that Lamborghini Company went out of business. They went broke and in the U.S. And so I got that fairly cheap. But I've never had trouble getting parts. That thing's been rebuilt 3 times in the last 50 years.
And it's still kicking.
Yeah, still trucking along. It's now set up. When we're done with cultivating, it does the heavy jobs, and it gets parked over here, ready for harvest.
Yep.
It's outfitted now for harvest. That little trailer guy in the back is designed to it pulls a 1-ton trailer, meaning 1 ton of fruit plus the weight of the trailer and the boxes that go in it. And unless you got grip on the ground coming down the steep hills up here, it's Mr. Toad's Wild Ride.
I can imagine. That's one of the things we didn't realize, how high up the vineyard went with everything. So trying to farm that.
Yep, it's a challenge. Remember a crappy place to grow grapes?
Yeah, but you've learned.
Well, you've tasted the product. It's worth it.
Yes. The last question I had for you is, our podcast is about kind of exploring Sonoma County with our kids and family. For people coming to visit Cloverdale and the area, what are some of your favorite things that you typically recommend people explore?
Well, it depends on what your goals are. My kids and I used to tube down the Russian River.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fun.
Especially this time of year where it's warming up.
And we used to get in at Cloverdale, right there, and traverse this part of the river and get out at Geyserville.
Yep.
And the really cool part of that is that stretch of the river is real wild. There's no houses, no develop around them. There's a bald eagle's nest that lives over there.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Like the stuff you can see because it's not all houses and developed.
That's great. I mean, it's real wild stuff. But do be aware, Russian River is a wild river.
Yeah.
Be careful. But that's where we like to go. And that's pretty neat. Let's see, what else? I like to go up to Lake Sonoma, and that's a real neat place. I mean, boating, yeah, okay, it's great, but there's some really great camping areas up there, and believe it or not, even after spending a year, living in camping, we still went camping.
Oh, that's great.
And so that is really nice. There's some campgrounds up north around Cloverdale. There's KOA up there and another one up there, campground wise. There are a few wineries that allow kids, and we're one of them. We're pet friendly, and kids, and I recognize that it's as a young parent, it's really pretty tough being able to do adult things, with kids, and they come to a place like there and they're just totally bored, and we get people that come here to visit us that are non-drinkers, underage, and we recognize that. Kids get popsicles. I mean, they get to taste something.
Yep.
And we always keep grape juice, wine grape juice, unfermented wine grape juice from the previous harvest for non-drinkers. So these are things that we do. And we also encourage people, we're not a commercial campground or anything of that nature, but the fact is that, if you're, bring a lunch here.
Picnic.
Yeah, picnic. It's we encourage it, but you got to understand, I'm in the wine business, and I'll sell you wine.
Yeah.
It's not free. But
No.
aside from that, that's that's it. Let's see, Geyserville. Geyserville is just an extraordinary little town to go to. I mean, they talk about 600 yards of awesome.
And that's what we love about Sonoma County. Like, we're exploring all these small places that, like, if you're trying to research coming to this area, especially with kids, how do you figure out all the places to go? So
It's kind of hard to, having small kids myself, it's hard to figure that one out. Lots of times.
Yeah.
And lots of times you think it's okay and it's not okay, and
Well,
and let's say, I like, for kids, Armstrong Woods is a great place.
Yep. With hiking and all the redwood trees.
And it's not a really tough hike around
Yeah.
doing it. There's other places along the Russian River you can get out and walk around and wade around and stuff. That's nice.
Yeah. Well, those are all the questions I had for you today. I appreciate your time, and
Yay.
hopefully our listeners.
How long did we spend? You-
I think about 52 hours.
Yeah, that's.
50 minutes.
oh, wow.
I know. No, it was
The
great.
longest, we're going to have to take this in chapters.